Unlock the secrets, learn new tactics, and build a winning strategy to win the aging game. Welcome to the Aging Game with Bruce and Susan.
Welcome to episode 2. So today is navigating senior living communities, and we are going to get some insightful information from an executive director. We have Bill Diamond with us today, so I'm excited to get into that.
Great to be here, Susan. Seems like I was just here.
I know, we were just here, right? Like a day ago. Very cool. So obviously we said last time we want to, kind of kick things off with questions from our listeners from the previous episode, and Adam had such a wealth of information. We did have a couple questions come in, and ironically, they were really around these two specific topics. So I think we wanted to kind of dive into those.
That's great. Yeah, and last week's episode with home care was fantastic. So a lot of great information about home care. And Kitty had a question. So Kitty, here's your answer. So her question was, she was wondering about how does insurance pay for any of the home care?
Yeah, interesting. So reading through the questions, there was a lot of questions about money. I think that was maybe one of the topics we didn't get too much into, but real basic, your traditional health insurance is not going to cover in-home care. Long-term care insurance, obviously, yes, that's, a great option, but most of the option, it's going to be private pay. There are some, I've seen very, very few policies that like a private insurance, like a Blue Cross Blue Shield or an Aetna, that have had some sort of a home care component. I'd say those are really rare and few and far between. So mostly you're looking at private pay or long-term care insurance. And I would definitely tell you to go back to season 1, episode 8, Kitty, and listen to all of that stuff we talk about with Mitchell about long-term care insurance.
And there's also going to be some veterans benefits. We're going to talk about that in a future episode, that there's some VA benefits that will help pay for home care.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful point. And there's some community-based programs as well. So there's definitely lots of options. But yeah, sadly, I don't think your traditional insurance is going to help you out here. And then one of the other questions we had coming in, which I want to kick it over to you because it kind of ties in our topic today, was Dimitri was asking, we had talked a lot about transitional care. We really just talked about that time of moving into a community and adjusting and acclimating. But does home care, is that welcomed beyond that or in maybe an ongoing way?
So Dimitri, that's a great question. And the answer is yes and no. And so, the have transitional care, some of the communities out there may accept it, and some may not. And so it really depends. The community itself, more than likely is going to want to see the qualifications of that individual. If they're having somebody come and care with somebody or take care of somebody during this transitional time, I would think they're going to be very careful on who they want through their doors. And so, I think so. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Many times they do welcome the transitional care, but it is something to ask. And again, the community itself is probably going to have certain criteria, to protect them for liability if something happens.
Yeah, I think last time we talked about you don't want to hire the gal from Publix. So
No.
I don't think they're going to let the cashier from Publix come in and care for you. Definitely going to be some guidelines. So you've always got a good story for us, so I'm anxiously waiting yours today because this is your arena.
I have a great story, and it's something that, as you know, I've been doing this for many, many years, and and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people and helped people through this transition. And there's something that I hear, and I've all and I've heard, I hear it from all my people. Bruce, first they say thank you. And, best decision I made. I only wish I would have made it sooner.
Yeah.
And, and so, here are, people from all walks of life, and they're all saying the same thing. Best decision I made. I only wish I would have made it sooner. And so when we talk about being 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late, it all comes back to, peace of mind. People are making this decision so they can enjoy their life, so they can put their head on a pillow and say, all my worries are taken care of, and now I can get on living my life.
Yeah.
And so, I think people, think about moving to a senior community and they think it's like the last step, and they think they're giving up their independence. But I think Bill, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about this, but people find that they have a lot more independence because of they're not burdened with they're not burdened with care. They're not burdened with cooking meals and running the Publix and doing all that, and transportation, and taking care of their home and socializing. And so there's sort of a whole list of you know services and amenities that a senior living community provides that helps people be independent much longer. So I know you're a cruise person, and
Yeah.
so we when we talk in this industry about living in a senior community is like living on a cruise ship,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of commonalities with that.
Someone told me recently they were describing where they live, and she's like, "No, it's great. Like I have like a key card, and I use that at the dining room, and I use it, to play mahjong with my friends, or to get a glass of wine, or go on the transportation bus." And I'm like, "Oh, it really is like a cruise. Like you're getting on the bus, and that's your excursion, and you go to the dining room for your meal, and you get your activities.
And you
But
just don't have to worry about getting seasick.
yeah, no
So
seasick, no sharks. You're good.
that's right.
Yeah." Well, me and my numbers. So I've got an interesting one today from the National Center of Assisted Living, which I thought this was interesting, and I'm excited to kind of hear both of your feedback on this. But it said that throughout the U.S. in total, there's about 30,600 assisted living facilities. So that wasn't including independent and memory, just assisted. And that accounted for 1.2 million residents. Do you think that's high, low,
Well,
accurate?
I think it's probably fairly accurate. Just talking about Southwest Florida, there are about 100 senior living communities in our area, and if you figure 100 times let's just say each place is 150 to 200 apartments. Yeah, I would say you're pretty
Adding up.
accurate. So, plus, you're thinking about, you have to add in, the independent
Yeah.
communities and the CCRCs and all that. So I would say it's probably much higher.
Yeah.
And, you know, and, we're seeing this, a lot of growth in our industry. A lot of times these are popping up like Walgreens,
Yeah.
and so they're popping up on a lot of street corners, which creates a lot of confusion. It does
Mhm.
provide a lot of variety for people, but good for me for
Yeah.
being the business that I'm in.
Yeah, they're like storage units. They're on every corner.
That's right.
All right. Well,
So as we get into this topic, I have my little chess quote that I'm going to
yes.
provide, and so every chess master was once a beginner.
Mm.
And so what's the meaning behind that is that you got to start from somewhere, and you can't expect to be an expert at this. You gotta start. And many times when people are on this journey of looking at senior communities, they don't know where to go, and you know they may talk to a neighbor, or they may go on the internet, which we try to tell people not to do that.
Yeah.
But you're always a beginner at some point.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely. I think that people, we keep hearing, is it too late to start? And it's never too late to start, but definitely we want to encourage people to start the conversation earlier. But everyone starts at the same place, 0.
It's true.
You got to learn from there. All right. Well, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into it with our guest today.
Sounds good.
When experience matters the most, Senior Housing Solutions uses over 30 years of industry knowledge to provide expert advice for those considering a move to a senior living community. We are the matchmakers of senior housing. Call today at 239-595-0207 for your free consultation.
All right, welcome to the Gambit. So today we have with us Bill Diamond, which I'm excited to get into this topic. So navigating senior living communities.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill and I, we've been colleagues for many, many years, and known each other and worked together for many years. And so, welcome, Bill. Can you tell us about you and your experience in senior housing?
Sure. Thanks for asking me to be here. I'm honored to be here and provide this information for this topic. And you're right. There's so much information out there, so I'm happy to elaborate on this. Been doing this for over 25 years, executive director of the Carlisle, Naples. Started out in North Florida, but started out in the hospitality industry, country clubs, hotels, which is a great move right into senior living, because I think you've mentioned before, like living on a cruise ship or being in a country club or a hotel. And that's what we try to provide, a hospitality setting with healthcare. And it's great for us to be able to provide that senior lifestyle for our residents, and the Carlisle with 350 units has the ability to do that from, like we're going to talk about, independent, assisted, and care provided to our residents.
Great.
Wow. 350 units.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
And you've been executive director. You've overseen rental communities, continuing care communities.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of both: assisted living, memory care, regional for overseeing a region, CCRCs as well for your buying communities as well. So over the 25 years, had my ability to be in each community and learn about each one of them and learn the differences. Again, it's just a matter of which fits best for the resident.
Wow.
Great. Well, it's great to have you here. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
It is. Thank you. I'm really excited to get into this, but I ask everybody the same question to kind of start things off, which is, what is something you know today about senior living communities that you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Technology.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. Wow.
It's unbelievable the way things are moving so quickly, and asking residents that are in their 90s to iPads and iPhones and Apple Watches or whatever it may be, that technology that's moved. 25 years ago, we were still writing things down on Palm Pilots.
Yeah.
Now we're into all of this technology that residents are trying to learn. I wish we knew that was coming so we'd prepare for it more.
Wow. I got to say, this is our 12th episode, and I ask the question every time. This is the first time technology's come up, and I got to say, like, why didn't I think of that?
That's a good one.
Like that. Yeah. I mean, you think about, it got me really just thinking for, like, if I think about, like, when I started, we were charting on paper.
Yeah.
And I've only been doing this 11 and a half years. So my gosh, like, what a short time compared to you two. But just in that short period of time, to transition to that. And wow, technology is a great one. Wow, you got me stumped. And now I'm thinking about all sorts of stuff. And now I want a technology episode.
There you go. Well, think about it. We look at our iPhones, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I have to put my glasses on to see them.
Well, we all know I
and
need
so
glasses.
let's take a 90-year-old individual trying to look at their iPhone or Android, whatever it may be, and using that technology to set up appointments, or everything is going to the technology end.
It really is.
And if we were able to kind of jump on that sooner with this generation, maybe that would be helpful.
And I remember, like, the big thing in senior communities back in the day was having a computer room.
Yeah.
Oh.
And, you probably don't have that anymore.
They're going away.
Yep.
They're going away.
It's funny.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, like, 10 years ago? I had recently toured the Baker Senior Center, and they had a technology room. And at first, when you walk in, there's computers in there, and I thought, oh, what a great resource for people to come and use these things. And then they had elaborated that they actually bring people in to help them. So if there's a senior that struggles to how to navigate their phone, or, like you said, like, make your appointments, they actually have people that help them with that. And I thought, wow, that's remarkable, because everything is your phone. If you make a dentist appointment, they're confirming it, and you're doing your paperwork in something that they're sending you. You're getting your bills. It's so much, and I struggle with it. So I can't imagine being a senior with even worse eyesight than I have now.
So kind of a funny story. My mom, who's 94, you would get these, two-step verifications things. And it's like, it comes through, like, let's just say it's Facebook, and there would be like the one number from Facebook, but then there's the actual number, and it completely threw her off. It just, I'm like, just tell me the number. Just tell me the number. And it just,
Well, nowadays, if you want to sign into certain things, it's like you have to approve it. Like, if you're trying to sign into, like, a Gmail or something, you got to approve it through YouTube, which I think is confusing. And then it's like the other day, like, you need the number or the icon. Like, there's the two-factor authentication things are so crazy. I can't imagine navigating that, because I struggle with it.
It's very difficult and like you said, the authentication or just making an appointment or just being able to see it.
Yeah.
And like you said, the computer rooms, we had them in our communities for family members that were visiting that wanted to print out boarding passes to get on a plane. You don't need that any longer.
No.
It's all on your phone. So they're going away, and some residents just use it for solitaire or different things for games. But now it's really, you need that to get through life these days.
well, great
I think I should move to a senior living community because I love solitaire on the computer. Like, I really do.
So let's move on. And so here, we're talking about senior communities. So let's kind of go back to the basics. So Bill, can you tell us about what people can expect in a senior living community as far as services and amenities? And I know it varies from place to place, but kind of an overview of what someone could expect in a senior living community.
You're right. It does vary, and it varies immensely from community to community and what you're moving into, whether it's an independent, like we said, a campus style setting, which has independent living, assisted living, or memory care. But it's really based on the services. Many services are the same, and then everyone has their niche of what they provide at each community, each company, and what their programs are. You're going to get dining, and dining is one of the biggest activities they do every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day. Depending on the community, it may have a bar, so you can do happy hour, maintenance, housekeeping. It all sounds great, and it's just like a hotel or a country club for those who get the amenities. Then you add on transportation. Then you add the healthcare component. Communities like ours at the Carlisle has a clinic that you can walk in and see a doctor 5 days a week. It just depends on the community and depends on what their services they provide and what they need and what the residents are looking for.
And what is the minimum age to move in?
So assisted living, there's not necessarily a
bummer.
minimum. Independent living, it depends on the community and their program and their lease. So generally, it always was, okay, 55 and older, or how many 55 and older are moving into a community where average age is in the 80s? So 65, 70, one person has to be of age to be able to meet that criteria, depending on the lease of that community.
Really?
Yeah.
So 42, I'm out.
Well,
I mean,
you need an 80-year-old husband.
Oh, well, we're in Naples. Wow, I mean, you describe it and it sounds, we're all going to age.
Mm-hmm.
This is an inevitable thing we're having. And I think it's nice to have this option that, you mention these things where people can still thrive.
So it's interesting. I got a call yesterday, and it's a couple, and they said, Bruce, we want to stay at home. We want to age in place at home. And, as we had this conversation, I walked them through. I'm like, well, a senior community offers dining, and it's just not important nutritionally, but it's important socially.
Yeah.
And I said, as you get older, maybe there's going to be, one person passes away, and then there's just you by yourself, and now, you have no one to eat with, and you're not cooking and you're not eating well, and so the socialization is so important, and you talk about maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really talk about a lot of the refrigerator breaks or the air conditioner's not working, and all those things, all that's taken care of.
Yeah.
Or, if there was a storm, to think, okay, life just goes as normal.
Who's changing a light bulb? We
Right.
just had so much rain, and the Hurricane Debbie that came through, or any hurricanes that come through. Who's taking care of all of that? Who's locking it down? Do you need to put up shutters? Do you need to do all of that? Or is it generators that are in the building? To have your supplies, your water supplies, your medications, your food. When there's a hurricane and we shut down for days or weeks at a time, it's a party at our communities because we're just self-sustained in the community. And biggest thing is you have hot coffee and you have a hot meal. And we had entertainment and dancing most of every day and happy hours so they can enjoy the time while there's a storm going on.
Yeah.
So it's that camaraderie to get through it as well,
Right.
instead of sitting home by yourself.
So, when I started off and I said, people say it's the best decision I ever made. I only wish I would have made it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what, this is
Right.
this is what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think they need to see that side of it. Like you're talking about storms and you're just self-contained and life is going on. I think about, Ian, when that came, what that was like. I mean, that's such a blessing for your residents to have that experience, whereas the rest of us were dealing with not.
And you have someone you can just go along with your daily lifestyle, and you have someone taking care of you. And that's the peace of mind for families that are not close by,
right.
That their residents and their families that understand that their families are taken care of in your community.
Yeah, and it's important at that age, especially as you're old, getting older. And if you have a cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's or dementia, having to go to, God forbid, a shelter, or, in my situation, I put them up mostly at hotels, but that is still a change of environment, and that can set them back in some instances and be very challenging. So I think that that's a really worthy thing to mention, is that during crisis like that, they're keeping stability.
And it's just a matter of meeting the needs of the residents and the family's peace of mind that they're being taken care of. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing that we provide, is that peace of mind, because you don't have to worry about your mom or dad or your loved one, because things are being done for you
That's
and someone's
remarkable.
keeping an eye on them.
So it's interesting because through my career, I've been on the sales side of senior living, but there's the operational side of senior
Mhm.
living, and there's so much that goes in with having this seamless life that people have, and so much behind the scenes between what you do as an executive director, as what the accounting person does, what the maintenance guy does, what the chef does, what the activities person does. There's so many things. Sales is just one piece to that. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it takes a village, as they say.
Yeah.
We have over 165 employees to make the residents' lives enriched every day. And, most communities in any area, when you're looking for staffing, you have to look for that right person that has that caring attitude. Hard to find sometimes, but, it's that individual that's going to really care and provide that genuine hospitality to their mom or dad, so they can feel comfortable that they're taken care of. You have someone coming into the home. If you're calling up for your refrigerator repair by yourself, you're waiting for a window of opportunity, and maybe they'll come, maybe they won't. You don't know who it is. These individuals coming into your home. These individuals that are there every day checking on you. You call the reception desk, and you have that same familiar face or same familiar voice, and they get to know you. They become family. We become extended family.
I love
great.
that.
Yeah.
Speaking of families and the residents, when they're starting to explore this, what factors do you think that they should be considering or looking for in a community?
Everyone asks that question, and you have so many different things. There's lists out there. There's all things. And really, it comes down to the person. What are they looking for? What are their needs? And sometimes they don't know. I mean, I'm sure, Bruce, they've come to you and said, I need to find a place for my mom. And they start off, she needs assisted living. But come to find out, she's doing very well and just needs some social engagement or dining. So it's really coming down to finding out what that person really needs and what they're looking for. And if it is healthcare, then maybe assisted living is, or home care, or someone coming in to help out. That's where we have to start off. Someone coming in, and like you said, Bruce, they may not even know. They've never researched this before. How many people learn how to look for senior living? Heck, we don't like buying anything, really.
Yeah.
Going to search to buy a car or a house. Everybody's, it's a novice sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, they're a novice at senior living. So we have to educate them and find out what they're looking for, and then see if it actually fits too. Some people don't fit into the communities that they're looking at, and it may fit in another community. It happens.
Yeah.
It's good.
Wow.
So when you talk about, and you mentioned it earlier about social engagement and the sense of community, and I know that Carlisle, there's so much going on there, and people are really welcome when they move there. But how do you instill that, and how do you create that as part of what you all do?
Sure. It goes with the leadership team, and it goes with being engaged with the residents, and it goes to the programs that we have. Hospitality. What do you think of hospitality? Someone sits down for breakfast, and you're having tea and an orange juice, and you want your eggs cooked a certain way every morning. That's down at the table when you sit down. Or you come into the dining room and you like your glass of wine. Those types of things are great. But social engagement is, what do you like to do? Or what did you like to do that you can't do in your home that you can start doing here? Well, I used to play cards and go over to the bridge club. Well, I can't get there any longer. Well, just walk down the corridor and you have a great game right there. So just learning about the resident. And one of the great things technology with AI, we interview our residents and find out about what they like and don't like. And we build our calendar from there. So, they say we want to go on trips. I think we have a trip going out to casino, all these, everyone does these things, but it's those hospitality parts of what you provide on a daily lifestyle to the residents that makes a difference.
So if you are a new resident, how does that person become oriented with all that?
Sure.
So
it starts out from prospect when they walk in the door and they start telling us about them. Then the new resident comes in and you have an ambassador program. Or, like I said, we do an interview to find out really their wants and needs so we can build a calendar to what they're looking for. And then it's ongoing. Are we making sure that they're getting out? We're checking attendance to make sure those individuals are participating. In the dining room, are they coming down to the dining room? Are we, our host or hostesses will seat them with new individuals in the evening so they can get acclimated or meet new people. It's again like a cruise ship. You have a captain's table, and you have the individual there who's welcoming to everyone, and you have a good meal, and that's where conversation starts.
I love that. I think that sounds so sweet.
Yeah.
And so Bill, as an executive director, and can you talk about like how much voice a resident has? I know you probably meet with
Sure.
all the residents, good and bad, and so can you just share how the type of voice and the
Yeah.
interaction you have with the residents
Sure.
collectively?
People will say there's some residents that may be too vocal and they might be difficult residents, but I look at it as they're telling you what they want. So let's hear and let's see what we can do to help make them happy. And that's the biggest thing, is listening. And the residents always have to see management, always have to see leadership, always have to see the individuals out there. Open door policy. Unfortunately, I see many communities where, the management team's behind a door. You can't get to them. You have to walk the community. You have to listen. All our team members and many successful communities, they're out there. They're accessible and listening and being a part of it. We'll have team members out there dancing with residents. You'll be at happy hour enjoying. So you'll be participating in an event. We just did a great event called Tour de Zest. We had our staff pedaling on individual bikes with residents, competing against each other, just like the Tour de France. So, you have to be inclusive of staff and residents to make sure that we're hearing what they're looking for. And then through many different ways, town hall meetings, individual meetings, we have an activities group that gets together to say, these are kinds of trips we want to take. You have a dining committee that says, people will come to you and when you look in your refrigerator every day, do you find something you like to eat every day? No, but residents have to eat in the dining room every day. And that's difficult sometimes. And these people have cooked in their homes for years. And they're saying, well, I don't want this food. I want that food. Well, we have to hear what they're saying so we can make that for them. You can't just create a menu and say, this is it. We're done. It's black and white, done. You have to listen and hear what they're saying so you can meet their needs.
So important.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Thinking about like health and wellness, what types of services or
Sure.
options are there available to them?
It runs the gamut as far as what the communities provide. Again, it goes down to the business model of the community. There's some communities that may have visiting doctors come in. There's some communities like ours that have an on-site clinic. There's some communities that have partnerships with home health companies, blood pressure clinics, whatever it may be. But it really depends on whether it's independent or assisted living. Communities that have been around for a while, like us for 25 years, or others that have been in the Naples area for so long, have established relationships with partners that come into the community to provide services. So when you're looking at healthcare, is it assisted living? From an assisted living standpoint, then the care team that's there is going to provide most of that. Sometimes assisted living people come in the door and they say, well, what about my mom's medication? Well, you still need to buy those medications. We're going to help assist with that. So it really depends on the community. It really depends on the needs they're looking for. And we get put into that healthcare model, but mostly hospitals don't know what we do. We're always educating them as well. Being discharged back, and communities like ours that are independent, assisted, and you go to the hospital and they say, you're from a community and they want to send you back. Well, you live in assisted living. Well, no, they might be independent living, but it's just that connotation that they live in a community. So they're going to get those services, which then makes us scramble to provide the services and figure
a lot
out.
of confusion out there.
There is.
And there are,
There's
just to kind of add to that, there are communities that offer, independent living, assisted living, memory care, and even skilled nursing. Could be short term, could be long term. So there is the wide variety out there. I wanted to talk about assisted living for a second, because I know the Carlisle has a special license in their assisted living called an ECC, which stands for Extended Congregate Care. So can you tell people about the different types of licenses in assisted living?
Again, more confusing, and great that you're able to explain that. And we're here today. There's 3 different licenses in the state of Florida: standard, LNS, ECC. What does that mean to somebody who never been in this role? A standard license, you have a nurse maybe on property and you have staff, and they're there just to assist. A nurse can't really be a nurse in a standard license AL, and it's not their fault. That's just the guidelines. Limited nursing is exactly it. Limited nursing. You can do certain things. In an ECC, an individual can get more care. We can do more things. An ECC, licensed assisted living, can do more care. But it always comes down to, if it becomes a skill where a person is in bed at 24 hours a day and needs that skill that a rehab has to provide, then we're going to recommend a skilled nursing or a rehab community. So you really have to do your homework, and it's really based on the director of assisted living and the nurses that are there to help guide individuals through that.
So when I think about the ECC, and this is a trend that that's occurred probably within the last 10 years or so, people are able to age in place more in assisted living in a more residential type of environment and get the care that they need, and which slows down the need for someone to go into a nursing home.
Yeah, and the difference would be also is individuals with memory care who are saying, I need to move into a memory care. Well, why? Unless you're a wander risk or an elopement risk, an assisted living has the same exact license, whether it standard LNS or ECC. So yes, it's going to extend those services so they can stay in their home, and that assisted living becomes their home. And that's where we want them to stay as long as possible. And then if you bring hospice care in or different services that are provided to residents, they can stay there longer. But really, the regulations are the guiding principles of what we have to do based on the license. And if you get part of those regulations and you're outside of those regulations, then an individual may have to move to skilled nursing. But my goal is always question. If an individual gets to a point, or a director of assisted living for the 25 years I've been doing this comes to me and says, this person needs to move, where are they going? And if they're going to another assisted living, then we can take care of them. And that's what you have to figure out. What can you do to help this individual?
So that ties me into, I kind of have one question, but maybe it's a two-parter. So we've talked about independent, assisted, and memory, but I wonder for our listeners, do they understand what requirements would you need to meet to be in each of those? So what are each of those? Is there something specific that when this happens, you're at the next level? And then how do, like, the different licensures, how would that impact, like, if I was bringing my mother to you, how would I know that there's something in the future you could or couldn't do? Like, I learned, I don't know, in the last recent years, like, that assistance with feeding wasn't, universal everywhere. So to me, I think to myself, well, I don't want to put my mom in a community that if her need changes, I have to move her somewhere else, because I feel like that would be a detriment to her. But if you're really starting to explore this and it's so overwhelming, because I think aging in general is an overwhelming topic, how would they know to ask these types of things? Or, because if you have just a standard license, is that kind of like, sometimes I see it in my industry where like a registry sells themselves like an agency.
Mm-hmm.
So are they kind of like not talking about what they don't do? And then how does that impact the person? So that was a lot, but
there's
I'm sure
a
you
lot
can
to unpack there.
There was.
Yeah,
There's
right?
a lot.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
there's a lot.
And I'm chomping at the bit.
Wow.
yeah. So
Yeah.
pick and choose, friends.
So let's talk about the requirements for independent assisted or memory care. Really, a person can move into assisted living and be independent, and they're just planning for the future. And when they have that need, they can just stay in that community, and just those needs are met and come to them when they need it. From memory care, that's where you're going to say the requirement would be, is an individual elopement risk?
Okay.
Are they exit seeking? Are they to the point where they may leave your building and not know how to get back? Then you're looking for them, and that's a whole bunch of red tape and paperwork.
And if I can just add, there's a lot of confusion between independent and assisted.
Mm-hmm.
And just because someone is tired of cooking, or they don't drive anymore, or they don't want to do any housework, that's not assisted living. That's independent living.
Right.
And so, there's, you can live in independent living and receive dining services and housekeeping and transportation and, enjoy your life. When you start needing more assistance, when you start needing help in and out of the shower, or someone to, help you with your medications, or help you transfer from your bed to a walker or wheelchair, that's assistance. And so that's really more assisted living. And so, yes, there's so much confusion out there. And then you start, talking about these different license types. And, yes, you're right, Susan. There are, some places don't tell everybody the whole truth, or they stretch the truth. And, it's tragic, because people move to a place thinking one thing, and then, they have to move out because it's not what they expected.
So when we were talking about agency versus registry, Adam was so key, because he said you can look at their license number. So an agency starts with a 2, a registry starts with a 3. Is there some sort of like telltale here that people could look at that would?
No, not really.
No.
Just really the only thing would be if you're looking at the assisted living license, whether it's a standard LNS or CCC. But like Bruce was saying, individuals will first say when they start looking for this, my mom needs to move into assisted living. And if you look at ADLs, assistance with daily living, Bruce was saying bathing, dressing, getting to the restroom. If they're getting up in the nighttime and everything's dark and they're trying to get out of bed and they're using a walker and they need that assistance, if they're home by themselves, someone's there to help them. So that's the assistance that they're going to get at assisted living. And those are the things that set the assisted living apart from independent living. If you're truly looking from that condo style lifestyle where you're going to get your dining and your country club and hotel atmosphere, and you just need that oversight, because a check-in every day is what most communities do, as well as ours. At 10 o'clock every morning, we're making sure the resident's okay. So that's peace of mind. That's independent living. And then if you add the different components of what's on property, healthcare, whether it's rehab services, that might be some physical therapy on property, all those different services, they can live in independent living successfully.
So much.
So there's a lot.
There is.
But it's so important because people don't know.
And then, if you, because of what I do, there is the state of Florida has a website that people can go to, and you can look at the specific license of an assisted living. It's the ACA website or portal, and you can, look at which license the place has. But, if you're educated and you're listening to this, or you talk to Bruce, and, you can ask that question, and you can, if you ask an assisted living, what license do you have? They're going to tell you. They may not. They may want to stretch you a little bit, but they're going to tell you. If you ask that specific questions, what license do you have? They're going to tell you standard LNS or ECC.
I think this whole topic just really validates why the service that you offer is so necessary out there, because this is a lot. I mean, I always say, I know enough to tell someone something, but by no means am I an expert or know things. And through Bruce, I've learned all sorts of other things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I think that's where it's important to really drive people to the experts of that, and, not have your golf buddy make a recommendation or your whatever, but your service to do, because I would need you to, if this was me and I was putting, my mother somewhere, I would need you to guide me through that.
So I'm going to stop you right there, Susan, because that expression, I'm going to put my mom somewhere, is like nails on a chalkboard, because I would much rather have your mom pick the place where she wants to live and make it her decision versus the adult child putting their mom or dad somewhere.
Very well said. I personalize it though, because I drive her nuts.
With that, then.
Yeah.
Right.
When someone says I'm putting my mom somewhere into a community, and it's basically open the door, drop them off, and it's your problem.
Oh yeah.
And so then we have to then get them acclimated, get the transition, get all that taken care of. So there are times where that happens, and family are just looking, look, I can't deal with this any longer.
I think that's sad. Yeah. I say it in jest, like my mother, she is definitely going somewhere. Not to my house. But yeah, I mean, I see that in my industry. They just call and they're at that point where they're at the wit's end, and it's just like, let me make this someone else's problem. I think that points back to why we think this podcast is so important, to help people with the conversation sooner, so you're not making those decisions that are either not with love or you're in crisis mode.
Right. It bottom line, it is with love, but it's also thinking of the person who's trying to care for that individual, because they can get hurt themselves. And their peace of mind as well. I have a mom who cares for her sister, and her sister's in an assisted living, and maybe I'll just bring her home with me. No, that's not going to work, because I have to think about both of them, not just one. And it comes down to when there's couples too. When you're thinking about mom and dad together, one maybe have more needs than the other. So you have to look at them as keeping them together. They've been together for so many years, but their needs are different. So you may have one that says, well, we need to go to assisted living for mom, and dad doesn't want to go anywhere near it, or vice versa. So we then have to work to educate both and say, for now, this is for both of you, because you can't help dress your wife or whatever, vice versa. And then you fall down and both of you are hurt. So we have to look at it both as a couple and then as an individual.
I would think with couples, it would be difficult and challenging and sad.
It is.
If one is resistant or doesn't want to go, but they want to stay together.
Yep.
The challenges of aging, I guess.
Sometimes it's a positive, where you can take that whole burden off the caregiver, and now they can get on living life, and they don't have to worry about cooking meals, and
Yeah.
they can have entertainment and everything. So Bill, you mentioned earlier about, you do these 10 o'clock morning checks.
Mhm.
So can you talk a little bit more about like what other safety measures and security types of things someone can expect in a senior living?
Sure. Again, all different and depending on the business model and the staffing model that individuals have. We staff our desks, our reception desk 24 hours a day. So then we do rounds in the evening to check on the residents. There's pendants that individuals will wear, like a call light that they can press a button and we'll find their location and help them where they're at. But then technology, as we talked about in the beginning, plays a role. Many people have Apple Watches now that say when they fall in it, it alerts the daughter in their home before they get to us. So those things are working in conjunction with what we do as far as security. Individuals, depending on the campus style or one building, locking the building down at a certain time and you have to buzz to get in or call somebody to get in. Having that staff on site. Most communities, unless they're some of the larger CCRCs, might have security or doing rounds like that. But most communities, you're going to have the staff at the reception team. Your maintenance team becomes a quasi-security, if you will, to go around and help individuals. And then it's the staff throughout the day, throughout the evening, keeping an eye on the residents. We want them to feel at home, but we also don't want them to feel locked in either. So it is their home. They can enter, whether it's a keypad to come through a door, whatever it may be, just like in a condo type situation. So it really depends on the community. And it, like ours is gated, depending on the community, could be gated. Just depends on the community and how it's developed. Yeah.
So if Mrs. Smith is putting the milk carton in the oven instead of the refrigerator, the housekeeper is probably going to notice that.
We hope. Sometimes yes. Or you know what? You're finding out how many times they're cooking and they're burning toast and setting off the fire alarms, because it happens. We burn toast in our house sometimes. So, but it's a matter of that they're living in a safe environment, not going through it alone. But yes, the housekeeper's going in there on a weekly basis, coming down to the dining room, and the servers understanding, well, you know what? This individual doesn't look that right today. Let's call in the nurse, or let's call in the reception team, or you know what? We may have to just call 911. And there's so many people around to keep an eye on individuals. And that's knowing your residents on a daily basis and making sure those individuals, having staff that's been there for long tenured staff and seeing that person every day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, you get to know how they act and how they react. And that's understanding what may have changed.
That sense of community is really strong.
Yeah. And think of it. How many medications are residents on that maybe they take a new medication and they're changed, or something happens and it's different. So we have to keep an eye on all of that and understand the changes of that, even in independent living, just to see what happens to the residents to help them.
And just to kind of clarify for our listeners, so independent living, people can come and go as whenever they want to.
Assisted living can as well.
So.
It's just when you're in a memory environment, that's where it's a secured environment. Assisted living, we do ask, and most communities should be asking for individuals to check in and out, so you know who's in the building. But yeah, either way, you should be able to come and go and live your life, and you can still have your own car in assisted living and drive if you're able. It just depends on the individual, but yes.
I think that was a good point for you to make, because I don't think I thought about it like that.
What's that?
I guess I thought in independent you could come and go, but I didn't think in assisted you could. Like, I assumed if you were there, you were there, and you were leaving on like their transport bus or something.
And people can have families stay with them, and they can.
Certain communities like ours have guest suites, like hotel rooms that they can stay on property, and they can go out by the pool and enjoy a vacation while visiting grandma or grandpa, or whoever it may be. Some other communities, the guests can come in, they may stay for lunch, for dinner, happy hour, whatever it may be. So we want them to feel like it's their home. Invite them into your home.
I like that. Thinking of that, can we talk a little bit about like mental health and just their overall wellness and kind of that part? How are you guys dealing with that? Because I can imagine when family leaves, they're sad, or there's that sense of loneliness.
That comes into play too with the check-in daily from independent living. If we're checking on them and making sure they're okay, and then making sure they're coming down to programs, and then from the housekeeper going in there on a weekly basis too, and seeing, if they're starting to, their apartment's starting to look disheveled or whatever, or they are, and giving us that information, but then also encouraging them to come out and participate. Biggest thing is, After we all went through COVID and everybody was locked down and staying in their apartments, people get the sniffles and just say, I want my meals delivered to me. I don't want to come out. I'm sick. And our goal is to get them out and say, you know what, if you're feeling better and you're not, everybody thinks they're contagious, come on out, come down to dinner, come down to happy hour, come down and listen to the music. Costs you nothing to sit there and listen to music. And even if you don't want to have a drink, just to engage, or you can sit on the side and just watch people. We have to make sure they're coming out of their apartments and being a part of it. And that's really where the team gets involved to really check on them and really checking in with them. How are you doing? Caregivers going in from an assisted living standpoint, they're going to go in there more readily than independent living and seeing those changes if they are, to make sure we're keeping an eye on it. And then if it gets to a severe, then we can maybe make a referral for some mental help from there. But from that standpoint, loneliness can set in. And that's where we need to make sure that we become the extended family.
Yeah, I think like after maybe the death of a partner or spouse, or if your family's visiting or leaving, I think people naturally have that feeling to isolate. So
And the
it's
other
nice that you
residents
can-
rally around them as well.
Yeah,
That's
I think
the
that's
best
the
part.
nice
Yeah.
The
part.
friendships that they have. They rally around them. They help each other. And again, they become the extended family that they're helping each
And
other
we
out.
probably don't talk enough about having lifelong friendships, but to know that you don't have to be lonely, to know that you can walk into the dining room and have friends there, or play cards, or have a happy hour, and know that you don't have to be alone. And so and being with like-minded people, I think, is important. So we probably don't talk about how important that is, but I think we, especially after the COVID times, we definitely recognize how vital that was in someone's life.
Quick story is, a couple moved in that we were talking about, and the individual, the husband, was not doing well, and he knew his days were numbered, and there was time, and he was setting his wife up, and he knew towards the end, and he would come to me and talk to me, and he would come to the staff, and he said, Bill, I know that I'm not going to be around much longer. He said, but I know my wife is going to be taken care of, and this is the only place I want her to be after I pass.
Wow.
That's a big thing for us to hear and to really take on that responsibility. But you know what? We take that. It's a heavy burden for us to make sure that we're taking care of his wife. And that's what we all believe in. And for him to be at peace, to know he moved her into a community where she's going to be taken care of and we're going to care and love her, there's nothing better. There's nothing better.
That's huge.
Yep.
That makes me tear up.
So, I'm the numbers guy.
Yep.
So, and I know, it varies from community to community,
Mhm.
but can you give our listeners sort of a ballpark of the cost associated with,
Sure.
this, senior housing in general? And,
Yeah.
if you want to talk about the Carlisle, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. It really depends on the community. It depends on the services. Independent living wise, even with us at the Carlisle, you're going to look at ranges from anywhere from $5,000 up to somewhat $8,000 a month for an independent living apartment. And then you're going to look at each place will have a second person fee. So there may be a fee on top of it. Like ours is going to be $950 for an additional for that person who's a couple. That's for independent living. And then if you're looking at assisted living, it could be anywhere from, say, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month for base fee. And then that's where the difficulty comes in. And I'm sure you hear that, Bruce. Like us at the Carlisle, it's $5,600 for a base apartment. But then what you're looking at is levels of care. And then you throw a whole bunch of questions into that. Levels of care, med management. When you're looking at levels of care, everybody does it different. Everyone does it different. There's really no one way that people are looking at it. There's some communities that do it by time, which I don't really understand. If my mom needs more help, what are you going to do in 15 minutes? Leave because her 15 minutes are up. We look at it as if you're a level 1, level 2, or level 3, those are the services that we put a care plan together personal for you that we're going to provide those services. No matter how much or how little, we're going to provide those services. And if you move up in the plan, you move up and you could move down. We had an individual come yesterday who was looking for her mom, and that was one of her questions. When she moves in, she may be at a level of care. In 30 days, does she stay in that same level? Well, not necessarily, because we want her, if we can, to get her stronger and better, that level may come down. And those levels can be anywhere from, say, starting at $500 up to additional $3,000, $4,000 a month on top of those monthly fees. There are some communities out there that are all inclusive. Again, I don't know how that business model works because sometimes care is a little bit more expensive, especially with staffing these days. But like for us at the Carlisle, we're going to level a person out to be where they need that assistance and make sure we staff towards that. Most individuals will come in and say, well, what's your staffing ratio? We don't have a staffing ratio. You staff to care. But there's places out there that do that.
Somebody read on the internet, they Googled,
Yep.
questions you need to ask,
Right.
staffing ratio, and it's so crazy. It's because what is that? Is that a CNA or
Right.
is it a nurse? Is it a maintenance guy? What is the staff? And
Right.
so it's such a random question that
Right.
people, they think they got to ask it, but they don't really. You really have to dig much further into it than just that.
You do.
And you mentioned the levels of care, and for our listeners, it's so important to understand the levels of care and what's included within each level, and because unfortunately there are times where people get slapped with a higher level and they really don't need it,
Right.
and so because sometimes the assisted living place needs to make money, and so they tack on a higher level when it's not necessary.
Well, not sometimes. It is a business.
Right.
But again, we
Yeah.
want to make sure we're leveling an individual to the level to get to meet their needs. And as I was saying, there's a couple of communities out there that based on hours or how many times a person's pressing a button for assistance. Well, if they're pressing a button for assistance, they need assistance. So what are we missing? What are we not taking care of? Why are they pressing that button so many times? So, it's really, yes, understanding what the levels are, understanding the director of assisted living who's coming out to do that. Our director of assisted living will go to the home and make sure the people that are involved with the care are meeting with them to get the real answers. Because sometimes a resident doesn't want to tell you what's going on. So you have to hear from the son, daughter, or loved one to let you know what's happening.
Wow. This is a lot.
So within assisted living, the state of Florida requires that 3 meals a day are provided. And that's different than independent living, correct?
It is. From independent living, again, depends on the community. We, as I said before, genuine hospitality, looking at a person coming down for breakfast, I don't know where the residents put all this food, but we serve a full breakfast. You're looking at blintzes, you're looking at pancakes, omelets. It's like going out to a local restaurant for breakfast every morning.
I
But
know where I'm going every morning.
there's other communities in independent living may just have a continental breakfast. Ours is different. We include a full breakfast and you have your choice of lunch or dinner. Mostly the program is you get to choose whether it's lunch or dinner. There's some communities now that are switching towards it. You're going to get a monthly fee involved. So you may get a credit or an allowance, if you will. And then you can use that allowance throughout the month. But, it's all inclusive with you're getting 2 meals a day in independent living.
There's some that people use that credit and they can get alcohol with that.
Right.
Ooh.
And
Right.
no, it's a bad thing.
It is.
So,
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how that would be.
especially if you missed a couple meals and you start
Yeah.
stocking up,
And
you
then
say,
you're swiping your wine
Yeah.
card. Yeah.
Yeah, and
No
that's
bueno.
there's some communities that it becomes a commissary kitchen where at the end of the month, if I still have money left on my credit for the month, it doesn't roll over. So they're buying, well, I want a quart of soup or I want a couple of dozen eggs. Well, we're not Publix.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Good call.
that's the communities that struggle a little bit with that. That's why we
Yeah.
just went with all inclusive.
I could see how that would be
Yeah.
challenging.
So, living here in Naples, it is a seasonal community. And so how do you all handle that? If somebody is living in your community and then they go back to Michigan for the summer, is there a break?
Yeah. There is a slight break at some communities. However, we can't re-rent that apartment. So you're going to pay for that apartment just like a rental if you would be in a real estate transaction. However, some communities like ours will give a credit back because you're not using some of the services. You may not be using housekeeping. You may not be using the food and beverage, obviously. So you may get a small credit back just to offset some of those expenses. Sometimes if there's a couple and there's not 2 people there, then the second person fee may be credited. It just depends. We're here to help. We don't want the individual to say, what, I'm moving out for 6 months. I'll see you in 6 months, move back in.
Yeah.
So the seasonal end of it, not many get into short-term rentals. We looked at that before in the past. Again, it gets too outrageous to do 2 and 3 month rentals and coming in.
And I get this question often about trial stays.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on that?
There's many people that love them. I don't. And I'll tell you why. Unless you have a program set up like a cruise ship that you're going to have, that person side by side with them guiding through the whole process. When you go to a hotel, you don't know everything that's in a hotel. You go to a club, you don't know everything that's there. You have to have a program for that. And sometimes that can backfire on you. And again, they're just there. You have to weed out those individuals because we have the calls all the time and they want to come down for 3 days. Well, are you really interested in moving in, or are you looking for a vacation in Naples, Florida? So it's just really looking at each person that's calling up.
I have found it doesn't work either.
No.
And when people have 1 foot in and 1 foot out,
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
out.
And the other residents in that community, I don't think they welcome people if they're in that transitional.
Right.
So I don't think it works either.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stress on the staff as well.
It is. Yeah. It's not, I don't personally like it. There's some places that do it, but I don't personally like it.
Yeah, I can understand. I really intrigued about your seasonal question because I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, but we are a very seasonal area. And do they ever, because some communities I know are like owned on like a national level or something. So like, could they go from like here and then to their sister community in Michigan?
That was,
But I know like you're not able to rent that unit. So.
Exactly. That was something that one of the larger national companies did years ago. There's not many that are doing that program any longer.
So then they'd be paying year round 2 places.
Yeah. The
essentially.
issue becomes logistics and furniture becomes a thing because if what do you do with your apartment at the Carlisle if you're just there for 6 months?
Right.
What happens with your stuff? And then if you go out to Michigan, well, what happens to your stuff up there? And so, it's just
messy.
It's not clean. No.
So pick your destination and stay there.
Well, and most of them had multiple homes anyway.
Yeah.
So they're used to that. We have people that leave for a month or so at a time, and it is what it is.
When I go on a vacation, I still, my bills still continue. Right?
Yeah.
So,
good point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
No
I wouldn't
different.
have
Yeah.
I've learned so much. I have to say, obviously I love home care. I'm not anti community at all. My grandfather had home care. My grandmother lived in a community, and I saw both of those growing up. My grandfather died when I was 20, and my grandmother died when I was 29. So I saw that, and it got me passionate about this, and I love the home care side of it. But I would never leave what I do. But you've really flipped a switch in my head. I mean, I
come to our side.
Yeah,
Susan.
that's it.
I
That's
did.
right.
Hey, I mean,
Yeah.
let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I'm saying I've always said like I don't think there's anything that would pull me away. But hearing you talk, like I mean, it's very inspirational. You're seeing a different side of it. I guess I can say from my perspective, and I'll speak for my mother in this perspective. Like I wish we would have known this when my grandmother was in a community because, oftentimes I don't go out into the literal community too much because I'm just a big emotional sap, and I'll just cry at the drop of a dime. So I think when I go into these communities, I see my grandmother in everybody's face, and so it's just very emotional for me. But I'm equating that to the experience that I had, and what you're describing, I think is a beautiful experience. And I think that the more people that can really know this can ensure that their loved one gets that beautiful experience. So you've pulled me to the other side with my heartstrings. But I'm still going to Bright Star.
That's great. And it's great perspective.
Yeah.
And Bill, I know the Carlisle is special and can you talk to our listeners about certain like religious types of things you all do there?
Yeah. Again, it's built on the organic nature of the residents and what they're looking for. So, you may have communities that are more predominant in one denomination, but we want to provide services for all. Whether it's a multi interdenominational service or it's services on Friday evenings for our Jewish residents as well. So, at our community, we have services for all. We do an interdenominational, we do a Christian, we go out and transport individuals to all the different places of worship as well, but bringing in for our Jewish residents as well, services partner with the temple as well, so they can have those services there. And again, there are some things that came out of COVID that were good, if you will, and some of the Zoom things that we did. And we now do some Zoom services from different places of worship where individuals were in their hometowns and show those in our theater so they can still participate in their hometown version of those services. So it's really seeing what the residents are looking for, but that is an important part for residents at this time of their lives, and bringing that into the Carlisle is what we try to do to help them.
Wow.
Yep.
Ben's going to have his work cut out. He's going to have to cut out all the times I got teary-eyed. Well, what is this has been amazing. You're obviously just amazing, and what you do. But what is like one ultimate piece of advice you would like to leave our listeners with?
Go into the community and get a feeling and see how it feels when you're there. And when you go in, look around, talk to the staff, find out about the leadership. And it's not just the salesperson sitting in front of you. Talk to the other staff. Because that salesperson, if that executive director or that other management individual is not coming out to see you and say hello and shake your hand and introduce themselves, may not be the place for you. Now, look, I'm not there 7 days a week, but our team has to be welcoming, and you have to get a good feeling when you walk in. It's the first thing you have to feel. If you don't, then it's not the place for you. Because what do sales individuals do? They try to sell you, and they're going to make sure you're comfortable or give you a cookie or give you something to leave with. Great, that's all good. But you're talking about leaving your loved one there. And you need to know the people that are behind it. And that's, I've been at the community for over 13 years now, running that community. Our management staff has over 100 years of experience at that community. Our tenure of our staff for over 20 years, we're celebrating 20-year anniversaries every other month of staff members that are there. You don't find that at communities.
I don't think you see that in healthcare.
And with so many individuals jumping around, find out those individuals are there. And also, like the Carlisle, ask questions. Accreditation, hospitals are accredited, colleges are accredited, universities are accredited. We put ourselves through a rigorous accreditation for CARF, which is an international company that comes in every 3 years and says, are you actually doing what you say you do? And, when we have our employees come into the community for the first time, 15, 16-year-old kids, and they say, how many policies and procedures do you have? 10, 12, no, over 1,500. And just doing those things on a daily basis. So meet those leaders, meet those individuals, hear who the staff are, obviously go have a lunch or a dinner, because that's important, but be a part of the community and get involved. And even after you say, yes, I'm going to give you a check or a deposit, go back, because that's not the stop. That's not the end of it. Participate.
And tour the health center.
Yeah.
There's too many times where people don't visit the assisted living or don't visit the health center, and they think, something bad's going to happen if they go visit there.
Right.
But you need to make that has to be a part of your due diligence, is to, look at the care, understand what they can do, understand what they can't do, understand the license. Very important part of this whole process. Bill, I know the Carlisle is part of the Senior Resource Group, SRG. Can you talk and tell our listeners a little bit more about SRG and the different properties you all have?
Yeah. No, love to. I mean, Senior Resource Group, based out of Solana Beach, California. We have been in business for over 35 years, and started out with one community and then grew. We don't want to be the biggest with as far as all these other companies that are national and have thousands and thousands of units and just keep growing, and look at those individuals that are on the stock market and have to keep buying and buying. We just want to be the best. And, that's why we put ourselves through accreditation, and all of our communities that are eligible, we want to be the best. And yes, we have an acquisitions team that's available, always looking at opportunities. And there's many that we pass on because they don't fit what we're looking for or how we want to run a community. And we want to run a community to make sure that we are looking at from a hospitality standpoint. Healthcare is important, but that hospitality is where we start. Genuine hospitality, looking at the first impression of the individuals coming in. All of those things that we do as a company that are tenets of being successful as doing this for over 35 years. And we have just under 20 communities now.
20 communities.
And throughout multiple states, Oregon, Arizona, California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. And that's where we look at most of the communities where they're at are in areas like Naples or Austin, Texas, or areas in California that are just the jewels of the area where individuals want to reside, and it's a destination for them, and the families would like to come and visit there anyway. So why not have a community there?
So you may not know, I know Bill knows this, but I used to oversee the Carlisle. I oversaw their sales, yes. And SRG, they really tried hard to recruit me to move me out to San Diego, and so I've known SRG and those folks for many years, and good people.
Yeah, back in the day when there was only 3 communities in Naples, we were all doing this. There wasn't many.
No,
now there's a lot more. Yeah,
I can't imagine that time. Yeah. But someone tells me that Immokalee Road used to be 2 lanes and it was dirt. So
it was. Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Imagine the traffic on a Mockley Road, only 2
So,
lanes.
so Bill, tell our listeners if they wanted to reach you or
Sure.
get more information on the Carlisle, how they can do that.
Always go to our website, carlislenaples.com. Always look at, if you need to just pick up the phone, call us, 239-591-2200. It's easy to find us out there. Everybody's looking at their iPhones and Google and find us there. That's our best way you're going to get information. All of our department heads have our cell phones. Our sales individuals are there 7 days a week. I'm always available 7 days a week. We're taking after hours calls. We're taking emails from Bruce if he's got somebody that wants to come by us, because you know what? We know that he's always a partner for us. So those are the individuals that we're going to take care of, and we're always available to help someone. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the stuff I've learned today. I'm so excited.
It's a good day when you learn something.
Yeah,
There you
well,
go.
I mean, I think I've learned something every day we do this podcast, but like I think today I'm like really amazed.
And there's so much more we haven't even touched
I
on.
know, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, wait, okay, so part 2?
Well, and I know we're kind of ending, but there's something that I was just thinking about that, I'm sure our listeners are going to wonder, does Medicare pay for any of
Sure.
this?
Oh, good
and,
one.
is it all private pay?
Yeah. That's a big one. Mostly private pay. I think you touched on it at the opening. Long-term care insurance, if you have that for assisted living, great. There's many people that do. But it mostly is private pay. You can get into assisted living where there might be Medicaid waivers that are taken at some assisted livings, but very few and far between. So in reality, the majority of it's private pay. And that's for individuals. Most of their portfolio, if they don't have, it's in their home. So they're selling their home to be able to reside in our communities, and they don't need to take care of it any longer. So they'll use those funds to reside in our communities, but mostly private pay.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
great.
Yep.
Because that I'm sure would have been a question that would have popped up.
Yep.
Everybody
Yep.
wants to talk.
everyone, and it's hard because
Yeah.
not everybody can afford
Well,
living at your
$7,
community.
$8,
and
$9,
so,
$10,000 a month at any community is difficult when you're looking at that at 89, 90, 91,
but it's interesting because you start thinking about, if you checked into, the Hilton,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you're looking at, $200 a day
Yeah.
at the Hilton.
Right.
Well,
Adds up.
that's $6,000 right there.
Right.
And and that maybe you get continental breakfast,
Right.
and maybe you get chocolate on your pillow, and
Right.
that's
Ooh.
about
Right.
it.
Maybe,
maybe.
not that much anymore. Right. Right.
So
Wow.
when you start looking at it that way, and you start saying, "Wow, at a hotel I'm paying this, but at a senior community I'm getting so much more
Mhm.
for basically the same."
Right. Right.
Yeah. Great point.
Yeah, and the cost of living that keeps going up to be able
Oh.
to handle your home
Yeah.
or go out and shopping, or all these different services that we're delivering items to their
Mhm.
home, that becomes costly as well, where you just walk downstairs to the dining room and you get
I
your
love
meal.
it.
And there's no taxes,
Yep.
right?
Right.
There's
Yep.
no taxes. There's no HOA. There's no pest
Right.
control.
Yep. No condo association fees, none of those assessments that came out of the hurricanes, of all of that. You're not replacing the roof and worrying about doing that supplement. It's all on us.
Are you pet friendly?
We are. And we have a
Yes.
little dog
I
park
knew you
where
were
they
going to be
can run
pet
around.
friendly because of Bruce.
Yep.
I
Yep.
knew Bruce wouldn't support an
Yes.
anti-dog place.
No,
This is true.
we definitely are pet friendly, and we actually have. Unfortunately, after 21 years, Madam Carlisle, we had a cat that lived at the community outside who passed this year, but we have 2 new cats now outside, and
Aw.
they're outside cats the residents take care of.
I love it.
I think they eat better than
Yeah.
me
So
sometimes.
it's a funny story,
Yeah,
but
me too.
my wife used to work at the Carlisle as well, and she came home and a cat and her found her way in her car,
Yeah.
and it was a feral cat and made her way into her garage, and it was we had a
Mhm.
Carlisle cat in our house
Yeah.
that we had to do something with.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah.
That's my mom. My mom finds cats everywhere. Wherever this woman lives, she attracts all the cats and feeds them. And they eat better than she fed me growing
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. And no, the residents sit out front, and they'll, the cat will come
Yeah.
by, and that becomes their pet.
Yeah, it does.
For most of them. And if they don't have to worry about taking care of a pet, they just
Even
have
better.
someone outside.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that animals are so important. I think it's so sad. I think about like if something happened to me and I went somewhere and like I couldn't bring Ralph, like I would just die of a broken heart.
But you also have to think about it is that is very true. But then there's some family members, mom's so lonely, let's get her a puppy.
Oh yeah, no, don't get a puppy to a senior.
And it happens all the time.
Oh God, go to the shelter and get a
It
senior
happens all the time.
'Cause
And then
what's
they're
gonna
trying to
happen?
wrangle a puppy
Yeah.
or take care of that puppy, or honestly take care of a cat and take care of the cat litter. And what are they
Yeah.
doing? Bending down.
Right.
So
It's
then
so
becomes
risky.
a fall. So again, opening up a whole different subject to talk about.
I had a client, she lived at your community, and all we were doing was med management for her. And we had interviewed her multiple times over Zoom. This was like during the height of the pandemic, and family lived in Denver. She lived in Michigan. And so she says to me, listen, I'm not going anywhere if I can't have my dog. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to see your dog. So she sends me a picture, spitting image of my dog. Her dog's name was Chloe. And so when she came, I said, well, Chloe has to meet Ralph. So they met, and they were twins.
Wow.
Except that Ralph was like 3 and Chloe was like 13. And then Chloe passed away about a year into it. And I mean, it just broke my heart. And I just think like that's sad at any age, any person. And then, you know, you're there. But she always did speak about the community that she had there, and she knew she wasn't alone. And that always made me feel better. But I always think about Chloe when I see Ralph.
So, Bill, great. Thank you very much for
it's
coming.
my pleasure.
And
amazing.
it's part of our next segment. It's actually we're going to have one of your friends, Vicki Tracy, coming. So I know
you'll get a wealth of knowledge.
I know. So
oh gosh,
wait till
another one.
Yes.
You guys are killing me.
Yeah.
I'm like every week.
Yeah.
No, I love this. I love that we're educating the community. I love that I'm learning so much. But even with everything I'm still learning, I do think as professionals, we have a responsibility to refer to the people that really do know. So I'm grateful for this knowledge, but I'm grateful that there's people like you in our community.
And I appreciate having the opportunity to do this and given the platform to explain senior living, because there's so much out there that people don't know.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, providing exceptional in-home care. At Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, we believe that you and your loved ones deserve nothing but the best. Our team of highly trained nurses and caregivers are committed to delivering the highest standard of in-home care. We offer a wide range of both medical and non-medical services to cater to your specific needs. From companion care and personal care to skilled nursing and therapy services, our professional care team is here to meet your needs, both now and in the future. Bright Star Care is proud to provide the highest quality of care and prioritize in-home safety. We are accredited by the Joint Commission, and all care is overseen by a registered nurse. With Bright Star Care, you can have peace of mind knowing that your loved one is in the best hands. To learn more about Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, visit us online at brightstarcare.com or give us a call at 239-992-4779. We are available 24/7 to answer any questions you may have. Bright Star Care of Naples and Fort Myers, where exceptional care meets compassion. Locally owned and operated since 2006.
Welcome to Checkmate. Well, as we close out this episode, this was just a wealth of information. I know I learned so much. I know our listeners probably did too. I would like to reserve the right to call you back for a part 2, because I feel like there's so much more we could get into. So I'm going to save that for the future. But what's your kind of one takeaway?
I think my takeaway was, how important it is for people to ask the right questions and to do your due diligence and to meet the team behind the scenes. And, I don't think people do that enough, and to meet the executive directors and to meet to meet all the players way before the moving truck arrives.
Wow, that's definitely, I think you're right. I don't think that they do that enough. So next week, I'm pretty excited. We're going to dive into the topic of real estate, which I think is very interesting. I can't wait to see where we take that episode. And I know we've got a friend of yours, Vicki Tracy, joining. So I'm excited to have her on, and I'm excited to learn about real estate and seniors and that journey together.
So Vicki, is, wait till you have Vicki. So wait till you hear Vicki. Vicki's from Gulf Coast International Properties, and she's like basically Miss Naples, and she knows everything about Naples and has been here. And so great person, has a lot to share. But I think that, a question I think for the listeners to start thinking about is that, what is the real estate market like here in Naples? What's going on? Is it good? Is it bad? Is now the time to start thinking about selling? Should I be thinking about buying? And so I think, we're gonna dig into that, but that's what we're gonna talk about. But I know, Bill, it's great. I know, you and Vicky go way back, and I go way back with her as well. So
Vicky and I go way back. In fact, she knows my kids and when they were Yohai, and so we've been doing this together. We worked together for a number of years. So you're going to get a wealth of knowledge out of Vicky and talk about real estate, and she'll go into the senior living part of it because that's a passion for her.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that's a important topic. I think what a great way to do it, but you got to make sure you have that right person. So I'm excited to meet her.
You're going to love her.
I think our listeners are going to love it. I can't wait. So until then, see you next week.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media. You can also find more information and resources at www.theaginggamepodcast.com.